Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen, other pairs will be analyzed today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video because I do have a bonus pair in store. But yeah, guys, I did take a trade this week. Some shorts in Aussie dollar did result in a 1% loss. Price tagged me out. We had some Aussie news early hours of the morning, tagged me out the trade, and then of course proceeded to fall, which was the move I was looking to capitalize on. Just entered a little bit too early from a market standpoint, but of course the entry was perfectly fine based on my trading plan and based on the setups that I trade. So that was a loss. I was also carrying some shorts on Aussie dollar as well from last week, which we did touch on last weekly analysis. This one ended up in a small win, so I did take some profit, went to break even. Price reversed at this level of support and went and took me out the trade. Then I got back in, and of course that second trade ended up in a loss. So we'll touch more on the analysis going forward into next week with Aussie dollar, because of course we will take a look at it soon. But that rounds up my trading for this week. No other pair kind of set it up how I wanted to, but nonetheless, next week is looking pretty interesting. We'll start things off with Euro USD as always. So coming into the week for Euro USD, I was actually looking for more upside. It wasn't on my watch list. I was more focused and still shorting the major pairs, Euro USD, Pound USD, Aussie dollar, which I did short, of course, and NZD USD. So I was mainly still looking to short those pairs. But with Euro USD, based on the price action we had last week, I cannot be looking to short this pair. We broke the high there. We started printing higher highs and higher lows. So at this point, I did favor some short-term upside for Euro USD. Back to the high, maybe some areas here on the left as well. But this week, it turns out we had a bit of a fake out with price coming straight back down, equally as aggressive as it went back up again. And now I'm expecting price to kick back in bearish, see some more lower highs and come back and test this low, possibly even lower lows as well. I'm looking at this as being just a bigger bear flag with the first correction, second correction, and now expecting the continuation lower. I'm looking for more downside back into the lower 1.04600. This is also a nice area to start looking to short. We did tap into that area just before the market did close, but potentially you could still see some more upside as price kind of gets ready for the week, and then potentially some sells to the downside. I'm looking at a lower high coming into context here. A bit of a weird head and shoulder, if you will, left head and then right shoulder there potentially. Not the best one, but it does make sense. Looking for that next kind of lower high in comparison to the high up there, and continuations into the low. I've had a look at the DXY as well. That one looks like we're likely to see more upside, hence you should expect more downside as well if that correlation were to come through. And we also had a very strong rejection of this big level of support here on the left, now turn resistance. Market rejected that very, very well. So essentially I'm just looking for this longer term bearish trend to continue. It showed some signs last week of reversal, but it looks like all of those hopes of reversal have been put to bed, and the bears have stepped back in with full force. So looking for a lower high to present itself, another swing back to the low, that 1.046. So something like this would be interesting, coming back into that high. Of course, we've already tapped into it, so there's a possibility we might just fall to the downside. So there might be some lower time frame pullbacks, which will kind of shape up during the week progresses. But looking at it from a weekend perspective into next week, this is the only area I'll probably consider to short from, and targets look pretty good, back down to the low there at 1.04600. So that's the plan next week for Euro USD. Okay, so up next we've got dollar yen. So dollar yen, my stance is still the same. I'm not really interested in trading dollar yen at these prices, just way too speculative, and considering the big level of resistance we're coming into. Again, as a trend trader, I'm always, well, majority of the time looking to follow the trend. Sometimes I do take counter trend positions, but most of the time I am looking to follow that trend. And higher time frames are still pretty bullish with dollar yen, still seeing higher highs and higher lows. 4H, same thing as well, higher highs and higher lows. However, I don't want to follow this trend for two main reasons, well, potentially even three, but the main two is that we're approaching this higher time frame resistance on the daily, weekly chart, which doesn't really make sense for me as a swing trader, interweek trader. to try and hold positions into this level here. I don't want to be buying into that big level. Number two was still very corrective, not really showing much momentum. I know we did have a nice move here to the upside, but and again, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. The market is still very, very corrective. It's not really a healthy trend at this point. So those are the two main reasons. But the third one is, of course, the Bank of Japan are looking to have some fun at these areas. As we can see with all of these wicks here, again, it's very difficult trying to buy and then just seeing all of a sudden you just get wicked out. Because Bank of Japan are having some fun right now. So I would stay away from dollar yen until we start to see a bit more clarity in the pair and the price action quality increases. And we're well away from this 150 area because it's a very, very speculative, indecisive area in the market. So my analysis is still the same, either looking for price to start pushing to the upside, aka breaking through this level of resistance, and then once we do that, we can kind of look for corrections above this area and see how price shapes up, possible nice break and retest, or we just have a bigger reversal. Price goes and breaks through some key lows, we start taking out some of these higher lows here, start reversing, giving us some lower lows and lower highs, then I'll consider some shorts and price going the other direction. So that to me again looks like a good opportunity. Of course, we're very far from that happening. We still need to see a break of structure, lower lows and lower highs for me to consider this, which may even just be a setup for the week after rather than next week. But again, in these situations, in this context, I would not really be looking to touch dollar yen. Of course, maybe the lower time frames, you guys can have some fun, but just at these prices, from a swing perspective, doesn't make much sense for me to jump into it. So I will be focusing on other pairs rather than dollar yen going to next week. But if you are keen, keep an eye for a big break of the 150, 151 area. Or if you do start reversing next week, we have seen some nice bearish momentum come back in. Maybe we have faked the highs here to now start to have the reversal. So that is a potential. It is a possibility. So if you do start seeing some lower lows and lower highs, a bearish trend forming, possibly there could be some nice shorts next week. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for dollar yen. But yeah, still definitely not on the watch list going into next week. Okay, so over to dollar CAD. So dollar CAD, I really like the price action of dollar CAD. We're very, very close to the higher time frame target. We're taking out this high, and it looks like we're coming right back into this daily level of resistance. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see price eventually go and take out the wick high there as well. So I do see more upside for dollar CAD. You can see overall is a choppy pair, but looks like this higher time frame bullish trend is still intact and continuing, even though it has been very, very choppy for quite a while now. Almost about a year, hasn't really gone anywhere, but we are approaching some higher time frame resistance, which we'll like to see a test of and potentially even a breakout as well, especially with dollar strength still looking likely for next week as well. So going into next week, I'm just basically looking for a continuation of this bullish trend. Low, high, low, high, low, high. So now looking at another correction for some new highs. So let me just highlight the swing points so we can all see it clearly. So yeah, I mean, that potentially could be a high, but I could obviously continue a little bit further, but if that is a high, that'd be great. Looking for some pullbacks, next higher low, and the continuation higher. So if we drop to the full H and just highlight this setup I'm looking at a break and retest of this high. Since we did get the breakout, never really came back for the retest in the full H. We do have these consecutive higher lows, which do join nicely to create a trend line, starting to create some confluence. If we can start reacting to those areas, come back down, next higher low, looking for the next continuation to the upside. So for me, this is like a very textbook setup here with dollar CAD, and if we can get a retracement next week back into 1.37800, we'll call it, I'll be more than happy just to follow this one to the upside, not necessarily to the wick high up there. I mean, if we pull back from here, let's say, that probably would be my target for the trade, because we are coming back into that higher time frame resistance. Maybe could leave a small amount to trickle to see if we do take up the high. But if we can pull back from those prices, that would be fantastic. And then again, looking to continue where the momentum is flowing, which is definitely with the buys at this moment in time. So still bullish on dollar CAD, looking for another pullback, 1.37800 we'll call it. We'll watch out for confirmations in that area and looking to swing dollar CAD back to highs for next week. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound still bullish bias on this one. Again, not my favorite pair in the world, but I am still bullish. We are still reacting with a pretty big area here on the left. So the market is failing to break through that. So looking for at least another correction to the downside, possible next higher low and a push higher. You can see we've gone slowly into a bullish trend here with the low, high, low, high, low, new high, and looking for a new higher low, coming back to retest some of the structure here on the left and connecting the dots over here. So if you can get a nice pullback into this zone here, if you scale to the 4HC a little bit clearer, if you can see a retest of this area here with that confluence, I'll be more than happy to look to buy some euro pound, take it back to the upside. Of course, I would keep an eye out on this level here, because if not, euro pound could easily reject that same level and of course come straight back down against us and take the other trade. So for euro pound, that probably would be a wise target. Maybe you could leave a small amount again to trickle to see if you do break the high. But euro pound has slowly started to trend to the upside and built this bullish structure with it. So looking for a correction, kind of away from the consolidation here. Don't really want to get into the noise here. If you can kind of break away a little bit, maybe take out some lows there, grab a liquidity, test that area of confluence, and then from there we can find some nice positions to take long, and of course back to the high as a target there, 0.87300. So plan for euro pound, exact same as last week. This is the setup I gave out last week. Obviously we didn't see it materialize. Price was just kind of moving sideways this week with euro pound just bouncing across that level of resistance, but it does look like the market's failing to break through, so we're likely to see this move to the downside, likely to see that retracement, and of course we'll see what happens there. If we do get the buys or not, of course price could break through and melt to the downside, potentially reverse, so it's important we do wait for our confirmations before jumping into the trade. But that's the plan next week for euro pound. Okay, so on to Aodu USD, a pair which I've shown a lot of focus to recently, and a pair which I'm still going to show focus to going into next week. I still do like the price action here. My higher time frame target still hasn't been met yet, which is the swing low down here. Again, all for higher time frame reasons. We've been seeing lower lows and lower highs for quite a while, and I'm simply looking for this trend to continue into its recent low. So that's where I'm expecting the market to eventually head towards. As you can see, you've been a little bit corrective now with Aussie dollar, very choppy, so I am being a little bit more patient before I do jump back into any shorts, and I'm going to be waiting for a break of this low and then look for my lower highs after that. Hopefully some more momentum can step back in, and then we can get some nice shorts to the downside. So very simple trade, and this is actually what I was pointing out last week, but we had a surprise pullback which I wasn't expecting, and then the market tried to break again towards the end of this week, but failed to do as well. Potentially could be forming a lower high. We are still respecting this big level of support, so this is the level I was shorting from twice on both trades, and we're still bouncing from it, and of course struggling to break through it as resistance. 1, 2, and 3. Well, 3 so far, so it does look like the market is still holding that area, potentially could roll over. We're still seeing lower highs being printed as well. They're not the most prominent, I would say, most clear. The market is kind of sideways a little bit, but I am looking for some bearish momentum to step back in. Let's break for the lows, catch some retests, probably the next lower high on that same area, and of course looking to short it back down to the low. So that's the plan for Aussie dollar, just waiting for a break, retest, low high, continuation into the weekly swing low, retest of 0.62800 and shorts into 0.61800 for next week. Okay, so moving on to NZD CAD. So NZD CAD is a little bit of a tricky pair this week. It does look like the market is struggling to break through the low. I'm still overall bearish on the pair, looking for us to eventually head to the swing low all the way down here. So that is still the plan for NZD CAD. However, as you can see, we are struggling to break the low, and there's a wick over here, which if I take across and bring it over to this side, you can see the market is dancing at this area here. So this is a very pivotal place. If I scale to the weekly, probably makes a little bit more sense. So this wick low taken across, this is a big level here, which if the market does break, it should be smooth sailing back to the lows here, but obviously we haven't done that, and still don't have to. The market potentially could reverse, of course. Big part of trading just being reactionary, seeing what price does. You can see we are struggling to break the lows. So with NZD CAD, I was talking about some shorts coming into the week. I was saying a retest of this area looks like a good place to short. We did see price tap into that level here, nice move to the downside, but again we failed to break through the low here, and now we're back there again. So typically the way I like to trade my support and resistance levels is normally on the first test. So if I have a level which I'm looking to buy from or sell from, I don't want to be jumping in on the second, third, or fourth, fifth test of that level, because typically the best trades from my trading style anyway, from my experience, normally happen on the first test of the level. Typically if the level hasn't been tested before either. So we just broken through a fresh level of resistance, come back into it the first time. That's normally when the best trade setups happen. So we've already had that first test, which is this high over here. Of course, we have seen a nice reaction to the downside, but it failed to break through the low, and now it's back at that same area again. So I don't want to be jumping into it. Possibly, we might still see another move to the downside. It's not that the second, third, or fourth, or whatever test doesn't work. It just doesn't work as well in the long run from my experience. So I don't want to be jumping into shorts here, especially when we are failing to break through the low. So what I'll be gearing up for NZD CAD is to see if we can break through this area and possibly try and catch the next higher low. Because we've got this low here, and then that higher low just above that high. We've got a high over there. Let's see if we can print a higher high and try and catch the third higher low. So starting to potentially get a reversal on this one. Also, Aodu CAD looks like it could be doing something similar as well. And then this is now support level. Probably focus on the high though, which is this area here. So this is probably where my focus will drift onto, breaking retest the high there, and try and look for some longs to the upside, because now we've got some bullish structure to play with, which is the low, high, higher low, higher high. Now trying to look for the next higher low, and of course the fact that we are respecting this big level of support, possible double bottom, and of course that weekly wick that we're bouncing from as well. So we do have some signs that's saying, okay, potentially we could be seeing a reversal for NZD CAD. Again, I'm still deeming this as a counter trend trade. The trend is still to the downside in my opinion. So this is still a bit more of a counter trend position until we start breaking through some key highs up here. Then I can start considering some reversals on the higher time frames. But for now, let's see if we can see a nice continuation to the upside. Look for the breaking retest. 0.80500 looks like a nice area. Stop loss below targets. Again, wherever that kind of high forms would be a logical one. This area here looks quite neat and tidy as well. Was that prior resistance? That could be a nice target. If you're feeling braver, the highs up there, although in counter trend positions, I wouldn't look to push the trade too far, because again, we are counter trend. We are going against momentum. So I think this level will make the most sense, but well and truly, wherever that kind of high forms, most likely will be my target if I do get into any NZD CAD longs. But that will be planned next week. Some buys from 0.80600, 500, and buys back into the high wherever that forms, or if not, into this level here at 0.81379. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So pound NZD, I'm still bullish longer term on this one for myself. I'm still looking for a big break and retest on this area here, which of course we already had, and for price to come back into the higher over here on the left, which is 2.15. So I still do see a lot more upside for pound NZD. However, we are already struggling to break through this area here and might see some downside from that, which could actually present some nice shorter term, medium term trading opportunities. We do have these highs here, 1, 2, possibly 3. If the market can start break some structure, I'll be happy to look for some short-term sell opportunities back down to the high over here, which are the same high I was talking about last week. I say this is the only area which I'll be happy to buy or look to buy for pound NZD, because up at these prices, back in resistance, there's nothing really that interests me for some buys, but there could be some nice shorter term sells if you do look for a retest, some structure, catch the next lower high, then possibly some buys later on, back up again. So for next week, I think the sells are probably the most logical trade to look for, because the buys are quite far down, so that might be a trade for the week after. But of course, I will point out that level just in case we do get there early on. But we are rejecting a big level here, 2.09. Market is starting to struggle. If we can start creating some lower lows and lower highs, that'd be fantastic. Break for that low, create new low, pull back, retest, catch the next lower high, targets back into the high there makes a lot of sense to me. And then we'll watch price for some buys later on. But for next week, I think this is the most logical, sensible trade to look for. And probably for the week after, we can start focusing on some buys. But yeah, pound NZD, break and retest, start looking for some low highs, roughly around the 2.079 mark, and targets back into the swing there at 2.056 for next week. Okay, so over to CAD Yen. So CAD Yen had a lovely move to the downside, which we were looking for because price was failing to break through the high here on the left. As we can see here, we had multiple attempts of price really trying to break through this area, but we failed. Then we started trading underneath it, and I said if we can start printing some lower lows and lower highs, there could be some nice shorts. And we did get quite a miniature pullback on the lower time frames, but it was there probably like the 30-minute, maybe even 50-minute for a good entry. And then the market did fall to the downside. So I do think it's pretty likely that we're going to take out this wick low here. That's where the liquidity lies. Price was looking likely to continue higher and come back to the highs there. But since we failed to break through the high, or at least a strong break through the high of the resistance we're talking about on the left over here, since we failed to really get above that and stay above it, and we started forming some lower lows and lower highs, the trend has shifted, and we're starting to see some strong momentum with the bears rather than the buys here. So again, if I do scan to the higher time frames, daily has been pretty bullish for quite a while, but it does look like we're now shifting bearish. So going into next week, simply looking to follow the momentum. If we can get some pullbacks into this area, that would be more than appreciated. And then looking for the next lower high to go and run the lows there. So as we can see, we are printing these lower highs now, simply looking for that to continue. Nice fresh level of support, which will be downturn resistance. If we can come back and retest that, that's a great place to look for some confirmations to go short and targets into the low there. Again, this is still counter trend in my opinion. It does look like we are starting to reverse potentially. We haven't really taken out any major structural low on the higher time frame, so it's hard for me to say that we are having a reversal. Of course, we are failing to break through the highs here on the left as well, so we are trading at some significant prices. But for me, a reversal, I want to see big lows getting taken out, such as this low here, and that will tell me a longer term reversal is on the cards. For now, we might just see another move to the downside, which then potentially could form another higher low for the price to keep pushing higher. So I'm still looking at this as short to medium term selling opportunities. Again, from a day trading standpoint, that's perfectly fine. Swing trading as well, you just don't want to hold it for too long, especially into major areas of support where buyers will be lurking. So with CAD Yen, looking at more downside, trying to catch the next lower high, nice fresh level of broken support time resistance around 108,500. So you can get a retest of that and into the lows here at 107,483. Makes a lot of sense for me going into next week. Okay, so over to pound USD. So pound USD still bearish for myself on this one. Again, I was speaking about pound USD in relation to euro USD last week. The fact that euro, we ended up taking the high, whereas pound USD didn't. So pound USD I remain bearish on because again, no major structural shift had happened. The market's still obeying lower highs. We did break through this high here, but I'm looking at that as more as a fake out rather than big break of structure, since we were very, very corrective as we did it. Here we did see a lot of impulsive behavior, never continued to the upside, came straight back down and actually ended up taking out that low. So going to next week, I'm looking at price coming back into the low here and actually further as well. I've been speaking about 1.2 and also 1.19, so that's still where I'm looking for pound USD to head towards. In terms of entries and trades, I'm looking at one more big push to the upside for pound, not necessarily because that's what I expect will happen, but that's more what I want to happen so I can plan my next trade. Shorts around these areas in terms of the risk reward, in terms of just any key levels. There's nothing obvious there for me in terms of something that fits my plan, something for myself to trade. In the lower time frames, there might be some entries to take advantage of because pound USD doesn't necessarily have to have a bigger retracement. It might just roll over to the downside, but if you can pull back up again, try and give me one of these lower highs that's been printing quite nicely, I'll be more than happy to take some shorts, coming back into some resistance here on the left, and then position myself to the downside to swing it back into the lows. That looks like a very nice trade with a nice risk reward as well, and good high time frame probability as well. As we can see, there's still a lot of bearish momentum intact with the bears here on the daily chart, of course, after taking out such a major swing low there as well. the likelihood of more downside is pretty high. So pound USD looks like there's more downside to be had. Like I said, DXY as well looks like more upsides to be had as well. Of course, I could be completely wrong. I'm just looking at the probabilities at my analysis here, and always favoring which side has the most probability, and to me that is definitely the bears. So looking at some shorts at 1.22, targets 1.205. Keep in mind 1.2, 1.19 as well as some extended targets if we just go and break through the lows this week. But yeah, more downside to be had for pound USD. Okay, so moving on to pound CAD. So pound CAD, we did get a break to the upside. Again, coming into the week, I was quite neutral on pound CAD because we were kind of moving sideways. We kind of had a bit of a fake to the downside here. So I said I want to see either price start breaking lower, then we'll look for the lower highs to continue short, or break to the upside. And then again, I'll look to continue that momentum long. And that's exactly what we've done here. So I am looking to continue that move to the upside. Nice break to the upside there. We're starting printing some higher lows as well, with 1, 2, 3, and looking at the next one coming back into that same area. If we can get some pullbacks into this level, I'll be more than happy to long pound CAD. At least now it looks like we are picking our direction, and now looking to follow that momentum to the upside. Also some nice momentum here, nice momentum there as well. Does the buyers are stepping back into the market. However, I am still wary of that higher time frame move we saw not too long ago, which is this massive impulse to the downside, breaking through this low, this low, this low, this low. So it's been very aggressive, and we are coming back into an area where some sellers will be lurking to see if they can short price back down again. So I will keep an eye on this area as a target, as just an area where if price does get into and start to see some heavy bearish momentum, I'll be careful in terms of maybe holding a position or getting into a position with pound CAD, because I wouldn't be surprised if we see another lower high here. So we had the high over there, create the low, lower high, lower low, could see a lower high there, and possible another rollover to the downside. That is still a big possibility with pound CAD, and this is an area where sellers will be lurking on the higher time frame. So for the 4H short to medium term, if you can see a nice correction, buy it back up again into that same area. However, do keep an eye out on that level just in case the market starts rejecting it heavily. We could likely see a lower high from that, and a complete reversal of this bullish trend, and start actually looking for some shorts later on. So pound CAD buys look good. I wouldn't hold on the buy for too long. Max looking at that level there at 1.68700. Keep an eye out for a break and retest of 1.675, which is where I've got that level and that confluence is at. And then we can start looking for some confirmations in that area. But yeah, still short, medium term bullish on pound CAD, but wary of that higher time frame level not too far away from us. Okay, so over to pound yen. So pound yen has been quite choppy. I said last week I was looking for some buys if we could see some higher highs past this point. It didn't end up happening. Price just respected the high and came back down again. I wanted to see a higher high and then look for some corrections, retest some areas down here, then look to follow that momentum to the upside. However, we only saw a short burst to the upside. The market respected the high and came back down again. So in this kind of vicinity, I've just got pound yen as consolidating, ranging. Of course, aggressive reactions at the highs, at the lows as well. So for me, pound yen is just moving sideways. So I'm waiting for price to commit in one direction, and then we can look to follow pound yen to the upside or to the downside. Both directions are looking pretty likely at this point. Just depends which way we break out. And yeah, looking to follow that momentum when it happens. Right now, very choppy, not much momentum to go with. It does look like potentially the market could be forming a lower high in a bigger head and shoulder pattern, left head and possible right shoulder. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. If we do see a confident break to the downside, we can look for some pullback, shorting to the wick low. If the market wants to retain its bullish structure and follow the higher time frame direction, daily, weekly, not so much daily more, but more weekly, monthly, then I could be looking for a break at the high, retest, and then of course looking for 186, 187 potentially to the upside. So I can see pound yen going both ways, but at this point in time, anything in here I'm staying well away from, because that for me is just very speculative, indecisive price action. But if you can break to one direction, then I can look to play some trades and follow momentum, whichever direction that is. Both directions look equally as attractive as the other. It just depends on how the breakup forms, the setup, the level, the confluences, will determine if I actually take the trade or not. But in terms of my analysis, this is what I'm looking at for next week for pound yen. So keep an eye on that high of 183.825 and the low of 181.190, because those are the highs and lows we need price to break. Looking for some retest and continue either back to the high there around 187 or the wick low around 178 for next week. Okay, so over to gold. So gold, very bullish close on Friday, breaking through 1980. I said last week, if we do break through 1980, which is this level here, I'm looking at gold going to 2050, back to that kind of all-time high resistance. And it does look like this kind of V-shape reversal pattern is in full swing. So with this price action now going into next week with gold, with this candle closure on Friday, as long as we stay above 1980, I'm just looking for pullbacks and continuations into that 2050 mark. As long as we stay above that, if we do come back underneath, things get a little bit complicated. We might see price come straight back down again. So it's important we do stay above 1980. But in terms of a setup, we see these higher lows here. Probably if I scale to the hourly time frame, you see them a bit more prominently. But as you can see, the market is slowly pushing to the upside. Then Friday, well, the last few hours of Friday, we had a big move to the upside there, and seeing all that momentum is what got us above the big level. So going into next week, I want to see a breaking retest of this area here, come back, give me an entry signal, and then looking to catch next high low. And again, in terms of targets, I probably won't be looking at 2050 in one go. I'll probably consider some of these areas here on the left, brief levels of support and resistance. Probably consider this area here as well as an area to take partials, if not just call it a day and take most of my profit out those areas, because it's a pretty big swing all the way to 2050, and there's a big chance that the price will probably pull back and knock me out the trade before that. So I probably will consider one of these two levels in terms of my take profit in terms of the risk reward as well. But from an analytical point of view, I'm still looking at 2050 for gold, as long as we stay above that key level of resistance at 1980, which is of course now acting as support. So keep an eye for breaking retest of the high there, 1993. Next target 2015, then looking at 2030, and after that 2050 for next week. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was extremely bullish this week. We were looking for a push back to the high at least, but I said I wasn't too sure what we're going to do next at the high, whether we're going to respect it, come back down or break through. And of course, as we can see here, we got a very big breakout to the upside. But now Bitcoin is still in the interesting area, as I was pointing out on my streams during this week. We're at a big level of broken support term resistance on the weekly time frame. As you can see, brief support here, big breakout to the downside, never came back for the retest. Now we're coming into this area. So now that we've had this big move to the upside for Bitcoin, I think we could probably see a lot of profit taking around these areas in some corrections. So if you're looking at positioning yourself long for Bitcoin, I would wait for some retracement. At the moment, kind of just moving sideways. It's kind of 50-50. Again, Bitcoin is still very bullish. I wouldn't be surprised if you just see another big candle breaking through. So it's definitely be careful. I would highly advise not shorting at this area, even though we're coming to a nice level of resistance, because it's just very aggressive considering all the momentum that is present in the market. It will be a much better opportunity, at least in my opinion anyway, to wait for price to retrace, pull back, and then find some longs back into that same area, possibly even further as well. So I'll keep an eye on the retest of the high here down around 31k. This is a good place to position yourself long and take advantage of the momentum, the recent momentum we've seen in the market. You can get a nice correction into that area. Of course, we may just break through, but I'd rather wait for price to at least retrace into support rather than buy at resistance there for Bitcoin. So yeah, waiting for some retracement, big move to the upside. There's not much to do at these prices unless you're looking to take the aggressive position and look for some shorts. Of course, could pay out, but in terms of the likelihood, there's a good chance of getting stopped out on those trades. But if you can see a correction for Bitcoin, 31k looks very inviting. Nice level of resistance now turn support, so you can catch the next higher low and follow the trajectory to the upside. And last but not least, we've got our bonus pair, which for this week is Aussie CAD. So I did touch on NZD CAD, saying that looks like potentially we might be seeing a reversal, or at least a nice counter trend move. Aodu CAD looks even better for the exact same move. Again, we're seeing a similar pattern here. If I quickly go to the higher time frame, price is failing to break through a critical low. Now on the higher time frames like weekly, monthly, I would still argue Aodu CAD is a bearish market, as we can see the consistent lower highs here. So I wouldn't be surprised if longer term Aussie CAD is still on its way to the downside. However, we're having a really hard time trying to break through this low. We're just seeing a strong bullish engulfing on the weekly candle there as well. So I do favor more upside for Aussie CAD. However, in the longer term, I'm still looking at eventually a lower high forming and the market coming straight back down. So I am still looking at this as a counter trend opportunity. Same thing with NZD CAD, and looking for some shorter, medium term buys for this one going into next week. So in terms of structure, if I move this out of the way, you can see Aodu CAD starting to print some higher lows. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kind of missed that one there, but 1, 2, 3, 4. And we are starting to print some higher highs as well, too, of course, breaking through this structure here on the left as well. So I'm liking what I'm seeing with Aodu CAD. I'm still looking at more upside for this one, but I don't want to push this trade too far. And back into this high looks like a really nice target to be had if we can see a pullback, and the area I'm looking to buy is back down here in the retest of this high here. We've also got some nice confluence. If we connect the higher lows, 1, 2, 3, possibly a fourth. That is a very wonky line. Let me draw that again, but if you can see a nice correction into that area, that would be fantastic. Look to position myself long and then take advantage of this counter trend opportunity back into 0.882. So you can see we do have some bullish structure here, so it's still kind of pro trend, at least for this 4H recent structure. But if you look at the higher time frames, everything is still pretty bearish. So with Aodu CAD, NZD CAD as well, but I'll just focus on Aodu CAD since the price is actually a little bit better and they're very similar pairs anyway. I will look for some buys next week, but I wouldn't push the trade any further than this resistance here at 0.882, just because the higher time frames could kick in at any point and see that trend continue. But at the moment with the structure here, I'm not looking to follow Aussie to the downside, Aussie CAD to the downside. I'm looking for buys next week. So keep an eye on the retest at 0.87115 for some buys back into 0.882 next week. And that, guys, brings us to the end of the video. If you have found it useful, please be sure to drop a like and leave, I was about to say drop a like and leave a like, but be sure to drop a like and hit the subscribe button. It really does help out the channel. Make sure you hit the bell as well, so you don't miss out any streams or uploads in the future. Make sure you check out my Telegram. I will post my 5 top pairs for next week as my watch list, and I will post it on the Telegram, so make sure you are a part of that. Link in the description. But nonetheless, guys, have a fantastic weekend, and I'll catch you all next week.